Hello, thank you everyone for coming. Again, I'm Courtney Durdle, and I am one of Tony Simon's research assistants, and right now I'm mainly working on MRI analysis as well as working with the families when they come in for the CARP study.
I'm Hannah Morgan, and if your kids do come to participate, they'll be seeing me a lot. So.
Yep.
So Tony did talk about most of this briefly, but why are we doing this study? So as Tony mentioned, there is this increased risk of developing psychosis, and we're really interested in the risk and protective factors of symptoms of psychosis, and measuring this through our cognitive tasks. And why did we choose these tasks? So we're looking at two aspects of cognition: emotion and executive functioning. And executive functioning meaning the set of mental skills that help us get things done. And we are looking at these two aspects of cognition because they're known to be impaired in people showing thinking challenges associated with the symptoms of psychotic thinking. This is also a great way to measure behavior and performance on tasks, and we're interested in that because behaviors give us an idea of what's going on in someone's head. And how are we doing these studies? So a lot of you have already participated with us, and we do a lot of computer activities, we call them. So we have emotional versions of the tasks. You might see this face if you're doing the study, and we also have non-emotional or images in our tasks as well. So our hypothesis of our study, so those with the higher risk of psychosis will be more impaired by emotional versions of activities, kind of what Tony was talking about before. And again, we're measuring this by using executive functioning activities, which will tell you a little bit more what those are specifically. So this is just a little bit about who we have in our study so far, just to give everyone a little update. So we have 41 participants diagnosed with 22q currently, and in our lab we use the pink for our participants diagnosed with 22q. And you can see the ages as well. So we have a lot of 12-year-olds currently, and we are aiming to get 100 participants diagnosed with 22q. So we're still working on that, and we also we currently have 45 participants who are typically developing in our study. We're aiming to reach 50, so we are really close at that, and the blue on the bottom just represents who we have right now in the study. And we're excited to get more people in, so if you know anyone.
All right. So now we're going to be talking about the different activities that the participants do when they come in to see us. So one of the very first ones that they will see is actually an emotion recognition task. So they will see a face appear on the computer screen, just like this one. And it is their job to tell us, out loud, if they think that this person is feeling either happy, excited, angry, fearful, or calm. So we do this because, again, a lot of the activities have the emotion component, so we want to make sure that if they are having a difficult time with the activity, it's not because they don't know what an emotion may look like. So now we're looking over at the results. So you'll be seeing a lot of box plots in our presentation today. So box plots are really great at showing a variance of data. So we can see right here that there's quite a range of the data, while up here, everyone's actually reaching the 100% mark. Another aspect to keep in mind when looking at box plots is the median here. So that's just saying that 50% of participants are above that and 50% are below. So looking at the emotion recognition results, we can tell that people are having a good time figuring out what the emotion that these people are having, especially for angry, calm, and fearful. Everyone's getting 100%. It just seems that there's a little bit of difference between the happy and excited, which is understandable considering the nuance between them. So now I'm going to pass it over to Hannah to talk about the actual executive functioning tasks.
All right, so one of the tasks that we do with our teens is called the self-ordered pointing task. You'll hear me calling it eSOPT, which means emotional version of this task, and SOPT, which is a non-emotional version. And the instructions we give to our participants is point to a different image in a different location. I'll show you a little example of that. And then our images change after a participant makes a choice. And so just why did we choose this task? So we're interested in working memory, which is temporary holding, how we keep track of short-term information. So, for example, being given a phone number and having to remember all the numbers in order and writing it down is an example of that. And we are also interested in looking at accuracy, so how well a participant is doing on the task, and then span. And span just means the longest list of items that a person can repeat back in a correct order after they see the presentation. So this is just a little example of what the task might look like. So what I would instruct our participants is choose one image in one location, and once you click on it with your finger, the objects move around, and now you have to pick a different object in a different location until you point to the 3 objects. So it is a little tricky. And that was an example of our SOP, so no emotion in this activity. And again, you see different objects. And this does get more increasingly difficult. So that was the example of 3 images. We then do 4 images and then 6 images. And the 6 images is very difficult. I can't do it. And so this is what we're looking at. This is the results so far. Of course, still adding to our results. And we do see a difference in groups in span and accuracy. And again, like I was saying before, both groups of participants, it does get harder to remember them once you do see more images, once that's thrown at you. And then we do an emotional version of this task. So that's, again, an example of some faces you might see. And we do a mix of angry and happy faces here. And again, it does get harder. You start with a 3, you go to 4 pictures, and then 6. And this is what we're looking at for the emotional results right now. So again, there is a difference between accuracy and span in our groups. And we found that our participants diagnosed with 22q are doing worse at angry faces, whereas our participants who are typically developing are doing the best at happy faces. And again, we can see that our participants, once they do see more and more images, it is harder to do this task. So here are just some interpretations that I have from what we're seeing right now. So again, there is a difficulty with working memory tasks, in both the emotional and non-emotional activities. And again, once more images are thrown at both of these groups that we're looking at, it does get more difficult. And also a little bit mentioning the impact of emotions. So for the results of our participants who are typically doing better at the happy faces, it's possible that this is a time where you're developing a new peer group, so you're looking for the happy faces to, expand your peer group at this age, possibly. And for our participants who are diagnosed with 22q doing worse at the angry faces, it's possible that you're avoiding the angry faces, so it does make it harder to memorize these faces. So that's what I have.
Yeah.
Handing it back to Courtney.
Thank you. So for the next couple of activities we'll be talking about have to do with task switching. So task switching is the ability to shift attention and be flexible in that. So, in a teen's world, having to go from one subject to another, in classes, it's pretty useful to be able to do this effectively. So for the first task that we'll be talking about is called a visually cued card sort. So our participants will be seeing either one of these 2 screens on the computer, and it will be their job to match their card, which is this bottom portion here, onto one of the 4 decks above it. And they either have to do it based on the pattern of the card indicated by the star here, or they have to match it based on the pattern of the card, actually right here with the rainbow. So they have to do this, and most of the time they will have the rule of matching based on shape, and then all of a sudden they'll be asked to switch and sort based on pattern. So looking at our results, we have accuracy here on the y-axis, and then the different trial types here. And it looks like, so they are struggling most with the pattern, so having to do that switch is very difficult for them. But because this grant, we were hoping to see if there's an emotional aspect of it that's a bit more difficult. We do have that comparison here. So pretty similar rules, either sort based on color of the background of the actor or sort based on emotion. And the emotions that they can sort based on are either happy, fearful, angry, or excited. And the majority of the trials will be based on the emotion, and then all of a sudden they'll have to switch and be able to sort based on the color. So we can see here that those with 22q are having a more difficult time with emotion. Everyone is doing a little bit worse when it comes to the emotional version compared to the non-emotional version. But emotions seem to be really tricky for those with 22q. So let's look a little bit deeper and see maybe is there a particular emotion that is a bit more difficult than others. So looking at our results here, this parallels quite nicely with Hannah's data, actually saying that angry faces are the most difficult for those with 22q in comparison to the other trial types. So overall, processing emotional information is more difficult than non-emotional information. And we know from, again, the emotion recognition task that it's not because they don't know what the emotion is, but it could be related to the anxiety, it could be related to a myriad of things that we'll be able to look at in our future directions.
And just quickly, so working memory and accuracy with emotional faces and objects is more difficult for young people diagnosed with 22q, and we are, of course, excited to add more to these findings. And
thank you all so much, because we couldn't have done it without you, the families. So we just wanted to say thank you again, and please spread the word. We are definitely looking for more people to participate.